Eva, good morning. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Did you
Oh,
get
back
any
there?
news? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I was asking how's the situation back there? Is it any better?
It's better. Yeah, it's just the rest of the world, and more important, where things are not as good because until everybody's safe, nobody's safe. But here, yeah, pretty much half the population, if not a little bit more, has been vaccinated. The figures are right down to what they were after the first lockdown in terms of deaths and hospitalizations and things like that. So they're going the right way, and I think pretty much everybody will be vaccinated by late July, with the vulnerable will be vaccinated by the end of this, well, third, second week, or even 6th of April. So much, much
Good to
better.
hear.
Things are not going too well back home, I see.
Yeah, I think the cases are spiking up with every given day. Maharashtra, of course, leading that tally, unfortunately. It's proving to be the epicenter again, I guess. With the first lockdown, also before that, Maharashtra was where everything started and sort of things rooted from there. But yeah, I mean, I think from April 1st, the government sort of put out a rule saying even people above the age of 45 can take the vaccine. So I think that's at least something that's notable in some sense. But otherwise, yeah, the cases are going up. A couple of places have already gone into lockdown, but Karnataka, the guys haven't opted for that yet, and hopefully it doesn't come down to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Europe going into another lockdown, Germany, Italy, France. They're on the
Yeah,
verge of their third. The reason there is that they've just not had the success with vaccinations. They've been very slow. That is due to that. But in India, if you're, is it over 50, you can just go and get a vaccination?
yeah, that was the initial age category, and people with comorbidities also could go. But now they brought it down to 45. So
Is it
people
easy to
born
get?
Not really, I guess. At least that's not been. It's not been that easy in Karnataka because I think the number of vials that they have, people don't seem to be. Not a lot of people can access it, I think. But there are quite a few centers near home as well where they're offering the vaccine. So I think at least it's a step in the right direction. Hopefully, we have like quite a few more coming up, I guess.
I think that's the real test, isn't it? It's all very well opening up to the younger ages, but the availability, which in England we've been lucky, the availability there. I know they've had some issues recently, so we might have not as many in the third and fourth weeks of April, but up to now, it's been really good. But you ready? We'll make a
Yeah,
start.
yes.
Hello and welcome to Desi Sportcast and the Prasan Show, because that's all we're going to call it from now on. There's no other name I can think of for this show because of the impact it's having and the popularity that it's gaining. And it's a warm welcome to the main man. How are you, Prasan, today?
Thanks for having me on again, Bharat. I'm doing really well. Considering where the world is at and considering how the cases are going up, I think we're rather blessed to be in a position where we're able to at least talk and enjoy the world of sports. So, touch wood, it's all going well. How are you doing back there?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Yes, I was lucky enough to get a vaccine last week, so hopefully I'm at the first shot anyway. So hopefully I'm a little bit more safer. But thankfully, the whole country, half of it, or pretty much over half now, is being vaccinated. So that's a good sign. So things are moving in the right direction. But like everyone says, until the whole world is safe, nobody is safe. So we're
Yeah.
hoping things change. I know things are going the wrong way at the moment back home, but we pray for everybody that it turns around very quickly and the vaccinations kick in. But like you say, one of the things that's keeping us going through this incredible past year has been sport, and no more. than now in terms of what's happening in the world of cricket. And when we spoke last week, for new listeners, I was, saying, I was questioning whether it was down to the toss was, the results were coming on the back of whoever wins the toss, and Prasen, as usual, was accurate in his statement that no, it's nothing to do with the toss. It's the way the players were playing, and it's the batting. And again, and I don't know how many times I've said this, but he was proved right again. Um, you called it. It was nothing to do with winning the toss. It was actually the way the Indian players were playing, and what a turnaround after our last conversation.
Absolutely, I think cricket sort of come to a stage wherein the toss certainly does play a role if the pitch is spitting demons. I mean, especially in Test cricket, we see how much the toss makes an impact, even in conditions where the ball turns a lot. But the T20 format is such that you just have 20 overs to express yourself, and teams always have a backup plan in case they lose the toss. And I think any good team has very good players. The 11 who come onto the field are obviously top class, and that's why they make the playing 11. So teams always have a backup plan, and that's what we saw in the final T20. The way Virat Kohli chose to open the batting along with Rohit Sharma, that was a fantastic move. I thought two of India's best had to face the most number of deliveries in that T20. So I think it was great to see the way Virat Kohli opened and approached his innings. For him to construct that 80-run knock, I think it was a fantastic effort. And along with Rohit Sharma, the two of them really put England under pressure early on, and that really helped Suryakumar Yadav and then Hardik Pandya to come and play their shots freely. And we also saw the bowlers, the Indian bowlers stuck to their line and length. It was just a point in time where it seemed like Butler and Malan were taking the game away, but a couple of wickets were what was needed. And once that came about, I think that brought about a rather easy victory. So, in some sense, I think toss certainly did play a role because of the fact that teams are always ready to bat first or bowl first, depending on how the coin toss goes.
Well, I think that was the comment afterwards here, certainly regarding the England team, that they needed to see if they could win batting first, and they weren't really tested on that, and it's something that they need to get their heads around. But India certainly did that by winning these back-to-back games, batting first and putting on the pressure, because the first three games did go according to the toss, but you called it as usual correctly. But the question is, what is it with this Indian young talent that's coming through that they can make their debuts, and it feels like they've been in the team for a couple of years. I mean, Surya Kumar, Ishan, they they've got really cool, ice cold blood running through their veins where they're not phased at all. If
I think that's what the IPL does, doesn't it? We've seen all of these youngsters who are coming in are all byproducts of the IPL. If you're talking about 6 to 7 years back, obviously the IPL wasn't that famous as it is right now. And a lot of the players were still making the team based on domestic performances. But now, especially in the T20 format, we're seeing that the players are taking the opportunity with both hands. Ishan Kishan and Surya both had a fantastic IPL 2020 season. And coming into the Indian team, they did have a whole lot of confidence. And obviously, it was not expected that Suryakumar Yadav will hook Jofra Archer into the stands, but that's the type of player that he is. We saw even in the IPL, he was knocked down by a bouncer. The next ball, he ramped Archer over the keeper's head to find leg for a six. So I think in some sense, the IPL really molds these players into international level players because Ishan Kishan also made a mention of how the playing all these pacers in the Mumbai Indians nets certainly helped him model his game a lot better. And I think the IPL has a huge role to play in making these players what they are at the international level. They're not at all afraid of what's to come because all these players have faced Jofra Archer, they faced Mark Wood, they faced Chris Jordan in the IPL before. So nothing's new to them. The conditions are also in India's favor. So no surprises that they're doing really well. And I think that's the biggest advantage of the IPL that the Indian team in specific gets all these players ready for the international level. So a lot of the credit should certainly go to the IPL.
and now all the players that are coming through have to be really wary of getting even a slight niggle that gets them out of the team, because the person that's replacing you is going to, chances are he's going to have a brilliant innings and you're going to struggle to get back. I think Surya Kumar would have played if it wasn't for Asian slight injury.
I think the Indian team went into the series looking to experiment because that was clear with the way Virat Kohli spoke even before the series started. He said that there will be quite a bit of experimentation that goes on, considering that this is a World Cup year. And now that we know, India will be playing more T20Is, but at that time it wasn't too clear if they'd play more. So it was a case of looking to experiment in some sense and try to figure out the best 11. So Surya would have certainly, I think, featured in a match or two, considering that it was a lengthy series. So he would have, but luckily for him, I think Ishan Kishan, had to make way because of that nickel, and he came in and he took the opportunity with both hands. And we saw that in yesterday's ODI also. Krunal Pandya on debut, having to overcome all those emotional barriers to sort of make such a big impact with the bat. I think it's fantastic for the Indian cricket future that the IPL is really producing all these talents season by season.
Yeah, and we'll come to that moment and the game yesterday in later part of the show. But just going back to the T20 and the turnaround, and you did say, experimenting was a part of it, even because it is a T20 World Cup. England weren't experimenting as much because they went with a straight lineup and played with their best, pretty much their best team, uh, and in preparation for the T20 World Cup, which they have prioritized. But the other thing I found really good, and I don't know if it's experimenting, is the fluidity of the Indian team. The batting order is not set. They're sending in players according to what the situation is, and I think that's an incredible asset to have in the team that the players can adapt that well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a testament of that is the way Shreyas Iyer really played in this innings. To be honest, I'm not too much of a fan of having Shreyas Iyer bat lower than four in the batting order, but he had to bat at five because of the strength that the top order has. So, but still, whenever he came out to bat, we saw that he had that aggressive intent. He was really looking to score boundaries and not take his time. So I think in that sense, all these players have certainly learned that the T20 format is so fast paced, and like you rightly mentioned early on that they can't take the spot in the side for guarantee. So we saw they even opted to bench Yuzvendra Chahal, they benched KL Rahul. So all of these things happen in T20 cricket, and I think all these players know it really well. I think the term embarrassment of riches has been overused in the last month or so because of the talent pool that's available at the Indian teams, and so I think in some sense all these players know that they have to take whatever opportunity comes their way, and that's a great thing to have because when your spot is under pressure, when your spot in the 11 is under pressure, then that most of the time brings the best out of you. So I think it's great that there's so much of talent at hand, and that can only bode well for the future of Indian cricket.
Absolutely, and it's also the fact that a couple of players have come back after long layoffs, and the main one I want to talk about is Bhuveshwar. What a comeback he's had with the bowl. His bowling has been incredible, and you thought he'd be fighting for his place. Now he seems to be a certainty to start.
Absolutely. Bhuvneshwar has been certainly fantastic with the ball, early on and towards the death because he was obviously India's leading best bowler, so to say, in the early parts of his career. But now with injuries having hampered his career and, him having to sit out a majority of the series, we're hearing names like Natarajan, Shardul Thakur, Deepak Chahar, obviously Bumrah's there, Shami, Umesh Yadav. So Bhuvneshwar to come back and make such an impact, with the ball, I think is fantastic because he is easily one of India's best white ball bowlers. There's absolutely no doubt about it. The way he mixes up his pace, the way he can swing the ball both ways, I think he's a real talent. And if he is injury free until the World T20, I think he can be a great asset for Virat Kohli. So good to see that he's in form, and hopefully he continues that form in the IPL. Does well. Probably not against RCB, but does well for Sunrisers and keep that performance up all through so that he can be geared up for the World T20.
Well, I know he was really missed last time in the IPL because of that early injury. But the other asset that's come back is it's really good to see Hardik bowling again.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Hardik Pandya, given the fact that he's one of India's premier all-rounders, it makes all the more sense that he makes the 11 in every single format. Unfortunately, he couldn't feature in the tests, but what he's done, in a matter of just a couple of years since his debut has been fantastic. I think been a key player for India, and he proved his worth even in that the fifth T20, that we played, wherein he came and scored those very quick runs to make sure India crossed that 200 run mark. So for him to be injury free and to make sure that he can bowl all 4 overs in a T20 or bowl all 10 in ODI, I think is great signs for India. Unfortunately, he couldn't bowl yesterday. Obviously that could have been due to various reasons, but if and when he's ready, if he's fully ready, I think by the World T20 that could possibly be the case. Then he's going to be an X factor for the Indian team for sure. And all rounders obviously are worth their value in gold, like they say in the T20 format. So he's going to be a very important player with both bat and ball.
100%, absolutely, and what an incredible fielder he is as well. But the other thing I wanted to take your view on, I don't know if it's me, and we've raved about Rishabh and his batting and how he's fought his way back into becoming the number one keeper in different formats. But do you think? I think his wicket keeping has also improved. He looked really sharp behind the wickets. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's been great behind the stumps. The fact that he's trying to get under the skin of every single batsman, I think is great to see, because that's the sort of fire and passion that you need to have on a cricket field. I think early on also when we did speak about just prior to the Australian series, we spoke about how IPL contracts are probably softening up players, and that they're taking all these matches against other countries for granted. But Rishabh Pant certainly not doing that. He's egging on the bowlers. He himself is taking a lot of inspiration from the fact that at such a young age he's achieved so much. So it's great to see for Indian cricket and for Rishabh Pant in particular. Because all the talk around him needing to fill MS Dhoni's boots, I think, have slightly simmered down right now because of what he's been able to do with the bat and of course with the gloves as well. Obviously, he's got a lot to learn, I think, in terms of needing to move a little better. But the way he was very athletic, especially in the series against Australia and even in the Test series against England. Um, on turning pitches, it's never easy to keep to someone like Ashwin. So, but he did a fantastic job. Obviously, there will be a couple of mistakes, but because at the end of the day, he's still human. So, but at this age, to have produced the type of knocks that he has and to effect the type of dismissals that he's had, I think it's a phenomenal effort, and he's just going to get better from here on.
No, but I think it's also a testament to the young man. He could have, just carried on playing IPL and taken the contract and what have you. But he's really pushed himself. I know we've talked about his batting, but I think it's also been reflected in him as a wicketkeeper as well. And like you said, there will be a couple of mistakes always, happening in the future. And same with his batting, there'll be the odd rash shot. But I think the way he's come back in all aspects of his game has been a testament to the young man. And the other question I had for you, and I wanted your thoughts, because when Rohit and Virat came to open, and I thought, why are we not doing? Why has it taken us this long to get this partnership? Obviously, Shikhar was there as a regular opener with Rohit, but have we sort of stumbled onto a new opening partnership, or was it another experiment that India could use?
I think what's
It just
interesting is
makes
that
sense for
Kohli.
me.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is that Kohli mentioned in the post-match conference that it's something that he's really comfortable with, and given the result that it produced, he's looking to do that into the World T20 as well. But then Rohit, in that the same day, the press conference, he said it's an experimentation process, and that they're probably going to see how it works. And then Kohli immediately echoed his sentiments right before the ODI, and he said, "Yeah, Rohit is right. It's all about experimentation." So, I think in some sense, Virat Kohli is very interested to continue that role. Obviously, he said very clearly and in no small words that he will be opening in the IPL. So, it's definitely a role that he relishes. Lest we forget the 2016 season which he had for RCB was fantastic, and the whole season he opened the batting for RCB. So for him to score those tons of runs, I think he's someone who takes his time slightly early on, and then he can really switch gears immediately. So it's certainly a welcome move, but that just means that someone like KL Rahul might need to drop down to number three or even number four if Kohli wants Surya Kumar to continue in that position, or maybe Ishan Kishan at number four is not too bad an option considering that he has batted at that number for the Mumbai Indians. So a lot of options there. I'm certainly a fan of Kohli and Rohit opening, but I just hope that doesn't mess up the batting order too much because that's the last thing that we want heading into a World T20.
It is the last thing, but it's just the options we have. It's just unbelievable. But can the selectors win? I mean, they've got such abundance of talent to pick. I know we've got 3-4 months to go before the T20 World Cup, but picking that 15, you wouldn't like to be in their shoes, would you? Although I'm going to put you in their shoes in a minute, but that's a tough selection meeting that they're going to have.
Absolutely. I think there are far too many talents coming out of the IPL, and we haven't even spoken about the likes of Padikkal or Shaw, players who have really done well in the IPL. And so that just means that for most of these players, it's going to be very, very hard to sort of cement their spot in the side. Even in the last World Cup, the 50 over World Cup, we saw that the likes of Dinesh Karthik and Kedar Jadhav were there, but they're not even in the discussion right now. There absolutely no talk about them at all. And all these new players coming in, Krunal Pandya is going to make a case for a return to the T20 side. Bumrah is obviously not there. Shami is not there. So we're talking about a lot of quality options that are not even there in the squad that played against England. So in some sense, I think it's certainly going to be a very, very tough task for the selectors. And obviously, the IPL is going to have a major say in how these players perform or are picked for the T20 World Cup squad. Because ultimately, the tournament is happening in India, and for these players to do well in India and make a case for their spot in the World Cup squad is going to be very important.
And now I'm going to put you in that selection. Have with when we prayed that everybody stays fit, we don't want any late injuries or any issues like that. I know there's a lot of cricket, and I'll come to that as well to you as well coming up this year. But in terms of your 11, I'm not going to go to the 15. We'll talk about that obviously later on in the year. But who's your ideal 11 for a T20 first game in the World Cup if everybody's fit and healthy and not getting married and having time off?
Yeah, I think Ishan Kishan opening the batting is a very interesting prospect, although it's been only two matches. He's someone who offers that firepower at the top of the order, and we've seen. I'm a big fan of Shikhar Dhawan. Don't get me wrong. I think when he was selected for the ODI 11 yesterday, I was probably the one celebrating because a lot of people wanted KL Rahul there, but Shikhar Dhawan is someone who really enjoys his batting, and you can see that in the way he bats as well. But I think Ishan Kishan offers that firepower and that aggressive start that we've been wanting for a long time. Ever since Sehwag, hung up his boots, I don't think anyone's been able to inspire that sort of confidence. Even if you consider the case of Rohit Sharma being there, so if Ishan Kishan is there, he'll produce that firepower at the top, which will allow Rohit Sharma to ease into his innings. And then Virat Kohli can come in, or even Surya Kumar Yadav can come in that number three and number four position. So I think in the top four, I've got Rohit, Ishan, Surya, and Virat Kohli. And at number five, I'm going to go with Rishabh Pant because I think he's a great talent. He's someone who should really be batting up the order. Also he gives you that left-hand option. Number six, I'm going to go with Hardik Pandya. Obviously, that all-round power that we spoke about earlier is something that he's going to really give. At number seven, I'm really tempted to say Washington Sundar because
Ooh.
he's someone who's been very, very economical, but at the same time, Virat Kohli hasn't utilized Sundar too much in the power play. So that's going to be interesting to see how Virat Kohli utilizes Sundar because he's someone who's bowled a lot in the power play. But if Kohli is not using Sundar, that just means that he's not going to play, and that just brings in Ravindra Jadeja automatically because Jadeja is obviously the first choice spinner, across all three formats. Maybe not tests, but especially in the ODI and T20 setup. And I'm probably going to go with I'm going to go with Bumrah. I'm going to go with Natarajan and probably Shardul Thakur and Yuzvendra Chahal as well.
Wow. There's some big calls. I agree pretty much with top seven. I went with Ravi, and I understand about Washington as well. I agree with Bumrah, but obviously with Buri having the series he's had, it's not easy call. We said, it's going to be tough, and even getting into the 15, it's going to be very, very tough. But that is a very strong lineup that you've selected, and one that really a lot of people can't argue with. I know it's either or in some cases, like I said, with like for example Ravi or Washington. But Bhuvi or Shardul, or it's going to be very, very interesting to see how the selectors come to that conclusion. But it's something really to look forward to. Um, the other thing I wanted to ask you about, and it was about the ODI series. I mean, beforehand, I really wanted us obviously to win the Test series. I wanted to see how we got in the T20 series because it's World Cup year. See how we match up with one of the England will be one of the favourites going into the tournament, and we matched up really well in challenging circumstances in a way as well, because we didn't have a couple of frontline players that would normally walk into the team, and we were experimenting, like you said. So, but when it came to the ODIs, I thought let's rest some players. It's going to be a long season. But yesterday when the match started, I thought I want to win this. I was going to take it easy with the ODI series, thinking, there's no pressure. There's no 50 over World Cup coming up. But it just shows, my opinion was the bubble is going to, and England have taken the view on all these players being constantly in the bubble. It's not going to be good for them coming to the latter part of the year. India have taken a different view on this, and they've gone with the full strength team pretty much that's available. What are your views on this, considering how much cricket is coming up, that they're in this bubble environment since what? Since the IPL started last year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, but I mean, let's not forget that a lot of these players have also missed out from matches. Rohit Sharma was not there for a while. Virat Kohli flew back home. KL Rahul. I think the only case, curious case in my opinion, has been the case of KL Rahul, because if he was not going to make the playing 11, during that Australian tour, they might as well have sent him home and asked him to play the Vijay Hazare or play, maybe some domestic matches to sort of bat himself back into form. I think a lot of the blame of KL Rahul's failures, especially in the T20I format, has fallen on the Indian management only because he's been in a room. I mean, he's obviously been match practice is any day different from what you do in the nets. It's always going to be a different challenge. So I think they could have opted to sort of send KL Rahul home, ask him to play a couple of domestic matches, maybe be with his family. Something on those lines, instead of having him sit on the benches throughout. But case of Rishabh Pant, I think it's been very easy. The reason why Rishabh Pant didn't play yesterday was probably to give him some rest. He's been playing non-stop cricket since the IPL. He played the Australian series, he played all the Test matches, he played the T20I. So it was a matter of giving him some rest, and that's why KL Rahul kept wickets. And the bowling attack also has been moved around a fair bit. Bumrah played in Australia; he's missing out here. Shardul Thakur has been there from Australia, but he obviously he played a major chunk as well. Shami isn't even in the picture. Natarajan missed out on the series and in the test series, and now he's back for the limited overs matches. So I think the only curious case in some sense has been KL Rahul, and his case should have probably been handled a little better. But again, the Indian team management probably knows best, and hopefully this doesn't affect his batting too much. And looks like he's batted himself back into form in the first ODI with that half century.
But do you think the bubble environment will eventually catch up with Indian players? Or you don't see that being an issue? Because it's certainly one of the issues that England have taken into account, and that's why they've had this rotation policy. I know I take on board fully about your, the points you made about certain players, taking rest for various reasons and being not part of it. Virat, Bumrah, Jadeja obviously through injury and what have you. Shami's not been part of this series, so they're getting a rest that way. But the majority, well, I don't know if it's the majority, but do you think this will have, because they're moving into another bubble environment straight after the series, I believe, for the IPL, then they'll be coming to England for the World Test Championship. That'll be another bubble environment. We don't know what the situation will be like for the Test series against England and after that. So do you think it will have an impact, or England are not making too much of it and India are going the right way in terms of how they're looking after their players, and there's no need for real rotation of the big names?
Yeah, I think being a level A cricketer, I think all the cricketers definitely want to play. They don't want to miss out because of the fact that they're representing their nation. So, for all the players, I think like we discussed, obviously there have been a couple of periods of time away from the game. Apart from like you mentioned, KL. I mean, like you mentioned, Ravindra Jadeja has been away because of injury. Rohit Sharma was away. Virat was away. Rishabh Pant, has probably been one of the cricketers who's been throughout, but he's at least played. So in some sense, I think that rest away from the game, even being on the sidelines, is fine. And I think England have had too many options to pick from, and that's why they've sort of sent players here and there. But Josh Butler's departure after that second test was perplexing for me because he probably should have stayed on for a majority. I think that's what Morgan said about Ben Stokes because when Morgan was asked about Ben Stokes, he said that Stokes is anyway going to be playing in the IPL, so it wouldn't have made sense to send him back just for the duration of the ODIs and then get him back because that wouldn't have been too much time. So I don't think the Indian players have complained at all. Instead, the management has done a fantastic job. Even Ravi Shastri mentioned how they keep the spirits of the players up and they consistently involve in some activities apart from what happens on the field. So I think it's been great. The players enjoy each other's company, and hopefully that continues on to the IPL as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so far, I think it's also uh, uh, shown that it's working so far in the success we've had. And England, obviously, there's questions being asked now. You mentioned Josh, but same with Bairstow, same with Moeen. Couple of strange decisions in hindsight, but maybe um, you know, regardless of hindsight, I think they made the wrong decisions there. Um, Moving on to the game yesterday, and even before the game started, that was a really emotional moment when Krunal got his debut cap. Um, Totally understandable, but yeah, that was you know well, I was going to say I've not seen that for a while, but you totally understand it. But it really had an impact on everybody viewing um, uh, what it meant to him to get that cap.
Yeah, I think the Pandya brothers have been through a tough time.
Mm,
We all know their story. It's very well documented. I think from a very young age, they've had to shift homes. They've had to struggle to get to practice and to see that, both of them, they did make their T20 debuts. But for Krunal Pandya to finally make his ODI debut, which came after a very, very important season for Baroda in the Vijay Hazare. Their father did expire
mm,
during the tournament, domestic tournament, and for him to sort of put all that aside and continue to put up good performances and then come and swing his bat for the hills. Swing for the hills. Like they say in the ODI format, I think was fantastic because when he did come into bat. There was only 10 overs left, and he knew that that was the occasion which he was waiting for. You could see that expression in his face, that burning desire, to excel. And yeah, when he was presented his cap, obviously it would have been emotional because it's a dream come true moment for any youngster, or I mean, even any player from the domestic circuit to make an international debut. And of course, with their father, unfortunately having expired, before the moment happened, it was indeed very emotional. But great to see the way he applied himself. One of my colleagues was even worried if he'd concuss himself the way he was hitting his head and hitting the bat after every shot that he played. But great to see that the fighting spirit that he has and that excel to desire. And I think Krunal Pandya is a great cricketer, and he's a very, very good pick for India.
100%. And yeah, his dad will be very, very proud of both brothers, and they're doing the nation proud. um, Moving on to the game itself, a couple of players under pressure really came through. Obviously, we'll talk about the debutants, and you've talked a little bit about Grenal's debut, incredible debut batting wise. But there were a couple of experienced players under pressure who came through, Shikhar and KL. Shikhar back to his probably his best, his form, and maybe he's now transitioning from T20 to ODI. I don't know, transitioning in the sense that he will be that ODI player in the near future, rather than a certainty in the T20. But good comebacks from both of those players.
Yeah, I think Shikhar Dhawan was obviously on the sidelines right through the T20 series, despite being in the squad, and it certainly would have been tough on him because having play with so much experience, it's never easy to sit on the benches for an extended period of time and see a youngster take your spot and do well. That was what was the underlining point for me, that Ishan Kishan, he impressed in his debut, but of course he did fail in his second match. But Shikhar Dhawan would have known somewhere, that. His spot is probably at risk because obviously Dhawan doesn't bat anywhere else in the batting lineup, and for Ishan Kishan to have produced that knock at the top, I think was fantastic for the youngster. And I was completely sure that Shikhar Dhawan will come out all guns blazing, in the first match, because obviously he would have had that desire to excel. He did lose out on a spot in the T20, as this was a good opportunity that he got to open the batting with someone who is very, very comfortable with. Rohit and Shikhar have been a very successful pair in the ODIs, and we all know that Shikhar Dhawan is a fighting character. He really enjoys his cricket, and I am a huge fan of Shikhar Dhawan's batting. And the way he carries himself on and off the field. So good to see that he got the runs, and of course, KL Rahul, had to bat himself back into form. He did struggle initially, but towards the later stages, he managed to find the middle, and obviously he continued from there on to make a half century. So excellent story yesterday. I think a lot of key points of Krunal Pandya's debut, KL Rahul, and Dhawan's return to form. So overall, a very, very good match for the Indian team.
Yeah, really good. And like I said before, I thought I was gonna, because watching India is like watching my beloved Test. There's always pressure. You never know until the last wicket or last minute of the game. But once the game started, I wanted them to do well and to win the series. But a brilliant batting performance, like you said. But also, in terms of the bowling, yeah, you've got a local boy there that made his debut that was not in my thoughts, and I've not heard too much about him, but you'll be able to tell me a lot more about him. I was wrongly probably surprised that he was in the first 11, but were you surprised with Krishna's debut? And can you tell us a little bit more about the young man and why isn't he playing for RCB and he's playing for Kolkata?
Yeah, I mean, the last question I think is something that can be answered only by the management, because they don't seem to be picking too many players from Karnataka. But I mean, to be honest, Prasid Krishna has been a very good performer for Karnataka in the domestic circuit. With the likes of Mithun also there. Obviously, Vinay Kumar and Srinath Arvind have retired, so it's come down to the likes of Mithun, Prasid Krishna, newbie like Vaishak Vijay Kumar, V. Kaushik. We've got some really, really good talent in the Karnataka circuit, but Prasid Krishna is the one who generates that sort of pace along with Abhimanyu Mithun. So he's been around for quite some time. I think. Although he's very young, he's obviously played for the Kolkata Knight Riders in the IPL, and after that 2019 season, I think Virat Kohli specifically mentioned in one particular I think it was a post-match presentation where he said that Prasid Krishna is someone who will be looking to sort of get into the Indian team. And since then, there's always been chatter about when he'll really make that jump from just playing domestic cricket to making his debut. But to be very honest, I think I was seriously surprised that he did play the first ODI
Mm.
itself, because I thought India will want to sort of make sure that they don't have any early roadblocks in the series. They want to play a fairly straightforward 11, and then sort of look to experiment in the remaining two games. But good on the team management. I think good on Kohli that he trusted Prasid, and the fact that he made a terrific comeback. After being thwarted for 37 runs from the first 3 overs, he came back to price out 4 wickets, and the best figures on debut for a pacer in ODI. So I think great that Prasid Krishna has tasted success early on. Um, Also, good to see that he's rushing the batsman. I think that's fantastic for a pace
Yeah,
bowler, and he'll only grow strength to strength from here.
I mean, I was really impressed that he was consistently bowling at 140 plus. Is this something that he does on a regular basis?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's always been a very, very quick bowler. He's demonstrated that in the domestic circuit as well, and I think that's a major reason for his success. India, we haven't had too many extremely quick bowlers
Mhm.
like how England have with Archer and Wood, and I think if Prasid Krishna manages to sort of get the right guidance and try and channel his line length a lot better, he can certainly prove to be one of those genuine quicks that we've wanted to have for a long, long time.
it goes back to what we said earlier. I mean, what are we going to do with all this talent that can't get into the top 11? Because, we found this young man, I think he's in the mid 20s, that I was surprised that was playing yesterday, but quite justified his selection. But then you got the likes of Shami Bumrah, we've saw the return of Bhuvi, then we've got Natarajan, Saini, Siraj. The list is endless, which is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. But, it's just unbelievable. I think even the comms here were saying, the conveyor belt of talent that keeps coming. It's just unbelievable and unprecedented. I don't think, even if you look back to all the big nations, Australia dominated cricket for a long time. Then you had the West Indies, but it wasn't a conveyor belt that they were turning out. That they had two, three teams that were good enough to hold their own in international cricket. This is really unusual, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's what the IPL has done. All these players come out of the IPL. How many times have we seen, other teams sort of managing to fish out this much of talent? I think Australia have been able to do so because of the Big Bash League, but I think West Indies, in some sense, have been forced to stick to their old players because the CPL hasn't been as successful as the Big Bash League or the IPL. And to be very honest, I think Indian media comes under too much criticism, and sometimes selectors are forced to pick some players in the squad because of the demand that is there from the fans, because that's never going to die down otherwise. So I think picking the guys like Rahul Tewatia, Prasen Krishna, Ishan Kishan has all been from the IPL, and obviously it's very very good signs that they are being trained to face such bowling in the IPL, which means that they are ready and they can get up for any challenge when they come to the international level. So fantastic to see again youngsters doing well, and this can only mean good things for the future of Indian cricket.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll see how as you know, the 100 is starting here, BCB's new tournament, and we'll see what sort of impact it has for English cricket. But we'll know in a couple of years' time. Excuse me. But one player I did want to ask you about is one that wasn't, we've talked about, and he struggled yesterday. Kuldeep. Is this a carry on over from what happened in the IPL and then the Australian series? Because he did struggle yesterday.
Yeah, I don't think Kuldeep's having the greatest of years. Obviously, he didn't have a great IPL season. He was overlooked during the Australian tour. He played just the one ODI, if my memory serves me right. And then obviously he didn't feature in the Test series at all. Um, it's been a very very hard sort of a couple of months for Kuldeep Yadav. Given the fact that he's not played much cricket. Obviously, he's someone who's got a lot of variety. Left arm wrist spin bowlers aren't premium. You don't find them growing on trees. But having said that, Kuldeep hasn't really had too many opportunities. I'm not sure if that's because of the fact that the Indian team is pretty much comfortable with having Chahal and Sundar, and off late, Krunal Pandya and Akshar Patel, and obviously Ravindra Jadeja. But Kuldeep Yadav offers that variation. Unfortunately, he hasn't been back to come good. He hasn't got too many opportunities. And even yesterday, um, he did look like Moeen Ali was playing him out very easily. He was bowling short far too often, or tossing it up very easily for the batsman to play him out. So apart from maybe two or three deliveries which really tested the English batsman, he was otherwise very playable. And unfortunately, that's not done him any good. And hopefully, he is back. But given that Chahal's waiting on the sidelines, and he was benched yesterday, Kuldeep Yadav might need to again be the scapegoat to accommodate Chahal in the 11.
Yeah, yeah, and he is under pressure. But and like you said, uh, types of the bowler he is, they don't grow on trees, and we'll see if he can come back, and we'll see if he can stay with, they can persevere with him in the next few games, just to bring him back a little bit of confidence. So he's back to his usual, because that will be only good for Indian cricket. But again, lots that we've covered, and there's a lot more cricket to come in the next couple of days as well, and then we'll start the build up with the IPL. It's 24/7 for you, isn't it? But it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not complaining at all because we're truly blessed to sort of cover sports, and given that it's also a passion. Um, I think there's a famous song as well which goes, I'm on vacation because I love my profession or something like that. I think it's a similar situation for me as well. I think if I sing now, the number of downloads might just go down, so I won't go down that route. But yeah,
Well,
I think
Prasen,
I
there's
think
only one way
it's
to find out.
no, I think we shouldn't hinge our bets on me singing because I have been demoted to a bathroom singer of sorts at home. So I think we'll keep away from that for now. But
Well,
yeah, I think honestly it's a blessing to be covering sports 24/7, and there's
absolutely.
never a dull time in sports. So
And
and obviously always great to be chatting with you as well. So
well,
always keeps me on my toes.
and I wanted to leave today's show with a comment from Seikat Samantha. Hopefully, I've pronounced your name right. Really cool stuff. Enjoying the conversation. Prasan is brilliant. I added the last bit in because I'm sure he would have added that bit in um, to the comment. But no, everybody's enjoying your insight and knowledge that you bring to the show. So thank you for that. So next two games. What do you think? 3-0 and we will go number one, or uh, more experimentation expected from the Indian boys?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a fair bit of experimentation. Obviously, Bhubaneswar played all the T20Is, and we might see someone like Natarajan coming in to make sure that he also gets some game time. I mean, I don't see too much of change in the batting unit, although Shreyas Iyer might be ruled out of the upcoming ODIs and also might miss the IPL, is what we're hearing. And if Rohit Sharma isn't fully fit, that means we'll need a couple of changes up in the opening position as well. So we might see someone like Rishabh Pant or even Surya Kumar Yadav. I think Surya Kumar Yadav might make his debut in the next match at the expense of Shreyas Iyer. So we might only see a couple of changes, but I've got a feeling that the whole squad might play this at least one match in the series if India go 2-0 up in the next match.
Yeah, and like I said, we know what the bench strength is. So anybody coming in, we know the standard that they are going to be bringing to the team. There won't be any drop in that. And in fact, I saw a tweet from somebody yesterday about the players that are not playing. You know, the likes of you mentioned we mentioned the tournament the Prithvi had in the Vijay and he couldn't make it into the squad. Then you got the Shubnam. It's abundance of talent that we've got at the moment that we keep harking back on, but it has to be mentioned. But fantastic. So much to look forward to again. Really good show. I hope you stay safe and things start to turn for the better back home. But you stay safe, my friend, and take care, and we'll catch up again on the next show. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for having me again. Lovely to chat with you. Take care. See you soon.